and welcome to the Healthy Half Hour podcast. We are your hosts, Richard and Karen Inslee.
The Healthy Half Hour podcast is your resource for all things healthy, and we will be discussing how to make nutrition, fitness and lifestyle choices work for you.
We will be sharing our own personal insights along with research gathered from working in the health and fitness industry for the past 10 years.
Our show is brought to you by the 7 Day Shred, which can be found at 7dayshred.com, and please feel free to visit our podcast website, which can be found at healthyhalfhourpodcast.com.
And now on to today's show.
So we're back home from our camping excursions.
Hope you enjoyed the podcast.
And I'm just trying to think if we've done anything in particular. We've been in the garden.
Well, the garden exploded while we were away because we had lots of warm weather and some heavy downpours and rain and sun, and everything just goes boom. So we're actually harvesting things now. We're pulling the beans, green, yellow beans off now. There's beets are coming out the ground. We actually dug a root of potatoes up the other day. So, things are moving.
It's exciting times. And the other exciting thing that happened is I managed to have a day trip to the local emergency department, to the hospital. And after having a reaction to the numbing gel that they put in your mouth when you're at the dentist. So that was an interesting experience.
Fun times.
Yeah, something that we say to clients, whether it's like medications or foods, you can develop intolerances, allergies and issues with foods and meds, and there can be like no rhyme or reason for it. So again, just wanting to mention that because it's just always useful to make sure that you are vigilant and you do listen to your body and you do note.
Yours was screaming at you.
What?
Yours was screaming at you.
Yeah, it wasn't the nicest of experiences because I was presenting with like multiple effects of a heart attack. So yeah, I had to get my neighbour to take me to the urgent care, and it's really weird because I've never had a problem with that gel at the dentist before. So it wasn't an allergic reaction, but it was a reaction. So I
don't
guess,
have that again.
No, I'm going to avoid that completely. So, well, yeah, it's just nice to mention it, that because, like I say, just listen to the body and make sure that you're being vigilant as to what you're actually putting in there. Mm-hmm. So, and just because it's good one day doesn't necessarily mean it's...
No, and that was enough excitement for one day as well.
Well, yeah. Don't want to repeat days like that.
No.
So, today, first of all, we're going to tackle a question that Karen in Australia sent us. And she sent a message. There's a few parts to it. She wanted us to give her our thoughts on low carb, high fat versus keto. Our thoughts on having higher carb days that include things like carrots, pumpkins and seeds and legumes, and fat fasting days. Well, low carb, high fat really is, the ketogenic formula. So everybody tends to keep their carbs between anywhere from 5 to 20 grams. And with regard to fat, it really depends on what level that you keep your protein at. And it's a case of tweaking with it.
And like we've said before, your protein level should stay around the 25-30% mark all the time. And then fats and carbs should be take the other 70% up of the rest of it. So yeah, just keep your protein. Don't get, because when you start to go low protein, that's more often than not when problems start to arise. So again, a lot of staunch ketoers get a little bit flappy about gluconeogenesis and making sugars from protein, but at the end of the day, protein is a satiating macronutrient and also obviously good for tissue repair. So I mean, if there's other things coming in, the body is less likely to make sugar from it at the end of the day, because it's one of those processes that's really tough, and kind of the body will do it at kind of a last resort.
And Karen's question about having higher carb days, and I don't want the keto police to like show up here.
Oh, was that there?
Yeah, because they might. But
I can hear the sirens.
Yeah, there's a lot of experts that say, and we kind of eat primarily paleo. We have lower carb days. We fast. We intermittent fast, and we kind of change things up. But when it comes to having higher carb whole foods, so we're not talking about processed carbs, so we're not talking about anything from the grocery store out of a packet. We're talking, like Karen says, carrots, pumpkins, and legumes, that it's okay to have higher carb whole food foods in your diet. And if you don't have any metabolic issues, if you're at your or almost at your ideal weight, then having what people term as either cheat meals or cheat days or going higher carbs, so long as it's whole foods, it isn't necessarily going to kick you out of ketosis. And everybody, again, is individual regarding whether they can go in and out of ketosis easily. I've found that even though the pea sticks are completely useless, I've just done it as a guide just to check, and I've used the pea sticks, and I've actually seen that I can stay in ketosis according to the pea stick, even when I'm consuming higher carbs.
And again, with that, if you're not sure and you have access to a blood glucometer, or you have one in general at home like we do, eat certain carbs. I mean, depending on your ethnic origins, I guess, it depends on how you react to them. I mean, some people will eat a potato and there'll be 8 on the blood sugar monitor, and other people will eat the same bolus of potatoes and still be 4.2 or 4 or something like that. So again, it affects different people in different ways depending on the digestion and again your makeup and your ancestors. So what might work for the husband might not work for the wife, or vice versa. So do check. I mean, if you really want to get down to that kind of the fineness of it and the nuts and bolts and the nitty gritty. And I mean, the other way to check too is eat something, and if you're checking blood ketone levels, as opposed to, like Karen says, with the pea sticks don't measure the correct amount of ketones in the body. But again, if you want to take it to the nth degree and see how you react. But again, if you're on that kind of 5, 10, 15% carbohydrates, and you get that from starches as opposed to cauliflower or other vegetables that are less starchy, big deal. And keep to that starch, keep to your carb range, and just don't go over. Obviously, with starches, there'll just be less of them, but then less starchy carbs. Because cauliflower, you compare cauliflower to a different sort of a more starchier potato or squash or something like that, you can eat a truckload of cauliflower for the same amount of carbs, because again, it's just a lot of water. So again, just things in mind, depends how deep you want to go into the woods, I guess.
And a lot of people micromanage and stress themselves out by trying to keep to a certain low carb level, and whether it's from carrots, peas, cauliflower or spinach, to be honest, if your blood markers, your stats are around where you want them to be and you're staying under your carb limit, it really doesn't matter where you're getting them from. But if you've got serious metabolic issues and type 2 diabetes and clinically diagnosed obese, then yes, you do need to kind of be aware and conscious of where you're actually getting those starches and carbs from. And the other part of Karen's question was about the fat fasting days. Well, fat fasting is something that I've done in the past when I was figures competing, and bodybuilders use it a lot to pull that last little bit of body fat down. And it basically is super high fat, 0 carbs and protein. So you're getting fat from the protein sources, high healthy dietary fats from the things the oils and avocados and things like that. So fat fasting is almost like fasting, but actually eating food, isn't it? You're actually eating, but it's tricking your body into that fasting
which,
mode.
Which again, I mean, we've said before on the podcast with keto. I mean, that's why keto diets kind of came to fruition, is because the scientists found out when they were treating kids who were having seizures that if they actually made the kids fast, then the seizures went away. So what they did is they just developed a diet that mimics fasting, and that's basically what the ketogenic diet does. So it's just like you're trying to trick the body into not having any sugar, so it uses ketones all the time, again, because it's better for those people who originally, again, were having those seizures and fits and problems. So they developed this diet. So it really is it's just a mimicking diet for fasting, just to con the body into that state where it thinks it's starving, but obviously you're putting food in. So again, there's different forms of fat fasting, like Karen says, and I think some of the fat fasting ones, the protein can go super low and you can get up to like 80-90% fat. But I mean, again, that just depends on the person, depends on the goal. So Dr. Google's out there for you to have a look at if that's something you want to kind of explore.
And one of the formulas that I followed when I was competing, it was 1.35 grams per pound of body weight, and it was equal amounts of proteins and fats, and that can be quite a huge calorie consumption. But I know that like I really pulled like my body fat and weight down significantly just in like a 5-day period. But it's not a pretty formula, and it's not sustainable. So,
and again, don't think that just because it's equal amount of protein and fat, if you had 100 grams of protein and 100 grams of fat, then you're getting 400 calories out of the protein and you're getting 900 grams out of the fat. 900 calories, sorry, out of the fat. So again, even though they're the same weight, the caloric density of fat is obviously way more. Have we killed it?
I think so, because like I've got a little bit more to say about intermittent fasting and the keto diet, but it relates to today's
what we should be talking about,
today's topic,
which
so
is
I will interject as and when.
Okay, so yeah, but today we've spoke about on other podcasts before about mitochondria and mitochondrial health, and again, it's not an emerging field, but it's something that's kind of caught some people's attention. Some people, obviously, like everything, are using it as a sales pitch and trying to sell courses and supplements and all the rest of the monkey nuts that goes with it to try and increase people's mitochondrial health. But we just kind of wanted to spend a bit of time going over what they are. And again, if you've never done like human cell biology or animal cell biology, then you've probably never come across mitochondria. But what they are the little powerhouses of the cells. So all the cells in your body, all the billions of cells, have all got mitochondria in them. Well, most of them, except red blood cells, they don't tend to have any. But the majority of the cells in your body do have mitochondria. And like I say, they're like a little power station. So they actually have their own DNA. You have your DNA that you got from your parents and everything, and you kind of shared that DNA, but mitochondrial DNA has its own kind of set of codes. You actually get those codes from your mom. Your dad has nothing to do with them, and basically that mitochondrial DNA is sent down from mom. And it's actually from just going one side. If kind of when people are doing like genealogies and they're checking back to kind of where people came from, mitochondrial DNA is like super accurate. So it'll actually tell you where and they've actually traced like people right back millions of years to kind of common mitochondrial DNA, which basically points that humans, well, Homo sapiens came back from Africa. But I digress. We basically, again, have lots of them in the cells, and what they do is they actually help turn the energy from food, what's floating around in your blood system, like, again, those fats and carbohydrates, glucose and things, and they actually turn them into what we call ATP, which is adenosine triphosphate, which is basically the body's energy currency. So all the cells need energy to work, and to make them work makes larger tissues work, and they make you work. So ATP, because most people say, oh, it's glucose. Well, actually, glucose is broken down into ATP through the Krebs cycle. Again, a little deep. But again, that is the body's energy currency. Mitochondria are very small. So if you imagine the size of a human cell, which is extremely small, then if you have a liver cell, you can have up to 2,000 mitochondria in one liver cell. So that just shows you how small they are. Some cells maybe have 1 or 2 mitochondria in them. So again, depends on what the cell does, depends on how much energy production it needs. So again, with that, they play other different roles as well, not only for energy production. They play a role in apoptosis. So apoptosis is programmed cell death. Cells in your body only live for so long. You are not the same person that was born however many years ago the day you were born. You change those cells depending on which part of the body it is. Sometimes you'll change them, especially like your gut lining. You'll change that every 2 to 3 days. Other parts of your body you'll change annually. Skin you'll change every couple of weeks. So again, we're not actually the same people. I think there's a central part of your brain, I can't think of the name of it now, I'm thinking basal ganglion or something, that's the only part you're born with that you actually die with. Everything else got changed at some point as we go along.
And apoptosis is programmed cell death, so your cells should be dying. They should be programmed so when they are dysfunctional and they need to die off. So that, and a lot of the times when that mechanism is disrupted through poor nutrition, lifestyle choices, that's where a lot of the times when cancer develops, because those cancerous cells don't die off and they just multiply. And apoptosis is that natural programmed cell death. So again, another reason for being vigilant with your nutrition, lifestyle, activity levels is to ensure that apoptosis is the process is working basically properly, and the cells are dying. So when you say to people, explain, apoptosis is programmed cell death. Oh my God, I don't want my cells to die. Yeah, you do. You want certain cells to die, because if they don't, then that's when cancer can develop.
And this is why we need healthy mitochondria.
Mm-hmm.
A couple of other things it does: calcium storage, so it helps like calcium ion storage and keeps your bones healthy, and also heat production. So maybe you're feeling cold a lot and it's not necessarily your thyroid that's playing up. It could be just, again, you may have mitochondrial dysfunction. So what is dysfunction? It's normally with mitochondria, it's not necessarily that they don't perform 100%. It's a lot of the time it's that you haven't got that many of them. And what you were trying to do, obviously, with a healthier diet and lifestyle is just increase that mitochondria. It could be through a lack of substrates. So when I say substrates, it's like enzymes, vitamins and minerals and things like that, again, that come from diet. And again, it can also be problems with electron transfer, which again, we're back into the ATP cycle again. So if you're not, ATP cycle isn't very good in your system, because again, more often than not, there's some parts missing. So there's enzymes or ions or things that aren't quite there. Again, circling back, it's more often than not poor diet and lifestyle. And also, as we're going to find out, stress is one of the big ones too. So mitochondria themselves can actually fuse together and make good ones if they're kind of looking a little bit ropey. And also, if they're looking extremely healthy, they can also split and make more. So again, there is a certain amount of divergence in that mitochondria that they can actually, again, split up, make new ones if you give them enough opportunity to do that. Again, diet, lifestyle and everything else. So actually, going back to stress actually increases the load on mitochondria, because again, they're energy producers. So if you've got a high stress load, you need more energy. So again, you're constantly asking those mitochondria to do that work for you. And one of the big things with low mitochondrial function and also having low mitochondrial counts in the cells is increased disease risk, your rate of aging. So you see some people and again, how old are you? And they say 40 and holy crap, you look 70. Again, they might have mitochondrial dysfunction, which again, smoking, a lot of other things can come from that, because smoking and other, again, you're introducing foreign substances a lot into the body. It just reduces that mitochondrial function again. And again, one of the big ones which we'll talk about more is energy levels. And people have low energy and just feel a bit kind of dragging themselves along. Again, can be thyroid function. It can be a lot of different things, but mitochondria can also be that thing too.
And you just were mentioning about stress on the mitochondria. And one of the things I said I'd go back to with regard to the keto diet is that when you're constantly bombarding the body with a high-fat diet, it actually doesn't give your system a chance to rest. So it shuts down the transport system that gets the fat into your mitochondria. So a lot of the times people will find on the keto diet especially that they plateau keto and stall and they stop losing weight. And a lot of the times it's that transport system of that fatty acid use in the mitochondria that's actually like stopped because you're constantly bombarding and stressing the mitochondria. So it's not actually using those fats in the desired way that it should be. So it's just something to consider. And I know that on one of the other keto podcasts, like we have mentioned that before. And just another thing that I also like to remind people of is that our gut has like its own circadian rhythm. So your body will actually process and digest a higher fat meal more efficiently in the morning than it will in an evening. So keto diets, better processes in the body if you take in your fats earlier in the day as opposed to like later, because it does all contribute to that mitochondrial function.
Oh, I thought you were going to have trouble with mitochondria, not function today. But there you go, we're stumbling over words as is. So how do you know you've got mitochondrial dysfunction? Well, there are a lot of tests you can do, but you pretty much got to go through a doctor or a hospital to get them done, because again, a lot of them require serum tests, which is blood work, and there's other tests too. But again, if you Google that, what I'll do is I'll put a link actually to the Wikipedia page for mitochondria. It goes way deeper than what we're talking about today, but again, it kind of covers all the bases from top to bottom. So if you want to geek out on that, help yourself and have a look. But like a lot of symptoms of the dysfunction of low mitochondria, type 2 diabetes, low insulin sensitivity, low insulin sensitivity. So that's
insulin sensitivity.
Yes, insensitivity. We're just going to say sensitivity for the next 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Chronic fatigue, again, low energy, thyroid issues. So again, circling back, like I said earlier on, it isn't necessarily your thyroid, but mitochondrial function can affect thyroid too. GI issues, liver, heart and kidney disease. Again, like I said earlier on with the liver one, it's supposed to be a couple of thousand mitochondria in those cells. So if that mitochondrial level is low in those liver cells, the liver's not going to perform like it should. If it's not performing like it should, more often than not, again, it invites that disease in, especially if the liver cells are not following that programmed cell death and they're hanging on a little bit longer. So again, it gets a little bit into the weeds, but a lot of these things are connected. And one big one, again, that Karen does a lot of work with at the minute is neurological issues. So again, like brain fog and not your memory problems and things like that, again, can be a lot to do with mitochondrial function. So we've been kind of telling you all about dysfunction and everything, and then everybody's kind of hanging on the edge of the seats now saying, well, how do I get my mitochondrial function better?
How do you?
I don't. Do you think they'll do it in such a high octave voice?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's like only dogs and cats can hear it.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm. So well, the dogs are going, I don't know anything about mitochondria. Surprise, surprise. One of the things that can improve mitochondrial function is exercise.
No.
Dun, dun, dun.
Really?
And especially what sort of exercise, Karen? You said it earlier, fasted exercise, didn't you?
Oh, yeah. No, I actually didn't. No, I actually said it to you before we started recording.
Okay. I knew it was in my brain somewhere. See, my mitochondrial function's low.
Yeah. No, actually, exercising in a fasted state does actually help your mitochondria to utilize those fatty acids for energy more efficiently. So
again, it can improve that mitochondrial function. Omega-3s can help mitochondrial function. Surprise, surprise again, whole foods. Eating proper food that your body knows what to do with. Less chemical additives, so eating processed crap. Plus also, when you look at it from a chemical additives point of view, look at things like hairspray, air fresheners, even hairspray too if you're spraying it on your head, skin creams, what you wash your clothes in. All these things, the soaps and everything that you've got like a chemical that's going to touch your skin that you're absorbing or that you're eating. Again, mitochondrial function can be knocked down by this because, again, it's something else that your body's got to deal with. And one of the things, like Karen said earlier on, fasting. Again, for mitochondrial function, fasting is one of the best things, again, because it gives your body a rest. It's like your pancreatic function, liver function, stomach function, all these functions that are constantly going. Then you see on the usual diet forums, we eat 6 meals a day just to keep your metabolism going. Well, why not just give your metabolism a day off or a bit of a break?
Well, when it comes to fasting, especially intermittent fasting, a lot of the keto population use that formula, and for the populace it can be great. I mean, we sporadically fast like multiple times throughout the week, and
I'm hungry today.
But the only thing with regard to intermittent fasting, like I've started working with a client recently, and he's been following the keto diet for a few months, and he lost some weight, but then he's been to his doctor and his uric acid levels have actually increased. And although these are not peer-reviewed studies, they're like anecdotal and observational studies, but they are out there. The intermittent fasting can actually increase your uric acid levels and then develop into gout. So it's just something to consider when it comes to intermittent fasting. And intermittent fasting and time restricted eating are totally different, but just again, be aware of some of the systems and processes and what they can actually do to the body.
Yeah, and he's because we're actually a client we share, and he messaged me because I'd given him some leg stuff to do on his workout, and he just said he felt like his legs were seizing up and his knees and his joints were really not overly swollen, but they just didn't feel right, like they were watering up. And obviously he went to his doc, and like a good man, he got his blood work done, and yes, like I say, we found the uric acid's high. So like I say, threw the ball in Karen's court, and she's now kind of fixing up his diet, and hopefully we'll get him rocking and rolling and back to where he should be.
Well, yeah, so it's not necessarily the keto diet that's caused it, but the intermittent fasting, because he's a shift worker as well, so he can go for a long period of time without eating, so he is really fasting. And so it's not so much eating high purine foods, it can be other processes that actually contribute to those high uric acid levels. So again, just things, so much to consider when it comes to what we put in our body.
So again, you can supplement too to help improve mitochondrial function. And again, we don't want people taking handsful of tablets. And I got a lot of this stuff you can get from, like we say, a whole food diet. But vitamins B's for sure, and C, D, and E all really helps. I mean, you can get vitamin D by standing outside in your Speedo for 15 minutes without any sunscreen on, and that should be enough for your vitamin D to take for the day. If it's 20 below, well, you're probably not the smartest thing to do.
No.
You can, minerals, again, especially magnesium, calcium, and phosphate, they're kind of the top three on that list. Like I've said earlier on, omega-3s. The CoQ10 and alpha lipoic acid, they're kind of both antioxidants. So again, that's what's oxidative stress is one of the things again that can cause mitochondrial dysfunction. And again, that oxidative stress comes from other stressors and not exercising and things. So taking a good antioxidant regimen, if you think you need one, can help as well. Creatine, which again is tied more into the bodybuilding world, and we do get creatine from red meats as well. And you've got a natural creatine level in your body all the time, which again tested on your blood work from your doc. But creatine itself is a fairly inert supplement, and you can just take it normally. And another one, again, which is a bodybuilder supplement, is L-carnitine. Now, L-carnitine is an amino acid, but it, like Karen said earlier on, it actually does help fat uptake transport into the cells. So that's one, again, that L-carnitine can kind of give the mitochondria a little bit of a leg up, just to kind of help get that fat in there to get that energy burning going. And
just as a side note, if you actually happen to be not hypothyroidism, if you're hyperthyroid, then your L-carnitine stores will be naturally lower anyway. So we're not telling people to definitely supplement with it, because you do need to do your research and talk to a professional. But typically, if you're hyperthyroid, then those levels will be naturally low in your body, and you will use them faster.
And just again, doing a little bit of research before we did this podcast, I found a really good study that kind of goes through all the supplements necessary and kind of their effects and dosages and everything. So I'll put a link to that study in the show notes as well. Again, if people want to geek out on this stuff, or you've not already switched off because we've bored you senseless. So again, mitochondria, probably something you've never heard of, something you're never going to probably fall across. But again, just a little bit of education, just kind of put it in the back of your mind that it's not necessarily your thyroid or other things that are kind of giving you grief. And again, a little bit of knowledge isn't a bad thing. And just what it does, I think, more often than not, is just reinforces that need for kind of low toxic lifestyle, low stress, a little bit of exercise. Again, you don't have to join CrossFit and go 5 times a day.
Really?
And just and just eating whole foods and generally looking after yourself. You only get one body, so
look after it.
Yeah, love yourself. Until next time, see you then.
That's all we have time for right now, but we do hope that you join us for our next show. And if you want to contribute to an upcoming show by suggesting a topic that you would like us to discuss in more detail, then hop over to our website, healthyhalfhourpodcast.com, subscribe to our podcast and submit your suggestions. The Healthy Half Hour Podcast was brought to you by the 7 Day Shred, and don't forget to share our details with your friends and review our show. Until next time, thanks for listening.